Okay. All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah. As we begin, I pull this up. I'll just share with you something that's interesting. Usually I don't like to bring attention to myself, but there's a specific purpose for this. That there's the Prophet ﷺ has du'as for all kinds of things that we learn from him ﷺ. And one of the du'as is the du'a that you make when you see someone wearing something new. And I really like it. I think it's such a beautiful du'a. It says, لبست جديدا وعشت حميدا ومت شهيدا. It summarizes everything. SubhanAllah. It says, may you wear it new, and may you live with praise and glory and like honor, basically, and may you die shaheed. It's the whole summary of the whole thing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the death of honor, death of shuhada. It's the daily Quran. عشت حميدا ومت شهيدا. You can double check it. That's the way I remember it. It's probably wrong. It's in the ballpark. There's also du'as for like the person when they wear it the first time. Essentially, it's very similar to the du'a for when you go to a new place. And that du'a is, Allah, I ask you the good of it and the good of what it was made from, and I seek refuge in you from the bad of it and the bad of what it was made from. And similar to when you go to a place, Allah, I ask you the good of this place and the good of its people, and I seek refuge in you from the bad of this place and the bad of its people. It's very interesting du'as. Very interesting. It's a really good book. It's been translated now. You can get it. Of course, there's the standard Fortress of the Muslim. But Fortress of the Muslim is very small. Doesn't gives a lot, mashallah, but it's small. If you want the kind of like the real umda on the topic, then you get Imam al-Nawawi's Adhkar, Book of Remembrances. Again, it's been translated. And usually for the du'as, they have the Arabic and the transliteration and the English. And then for his commentary and stuff like that, they have just the English. But it's a very nice translation. It's very well done. Book of Remembrances. It has a yellow cover and it's really big. I want to say it's trying to remember who translated it. It's Turath Publishing, I think. Turath Publishing. Yeah. Does it show who's the translator? Might be Abdul Samad Clark. Yeah, that's the one. You see it? Oh, Muhammad Isa Waili, yeah. Muhammad Isa Waili. It's a good translation. All right, Bismillah. So we left off on section 4 on going to tyrannical rulers due to an excuse. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad. I mean, going to tyrannical rulers due to an excuse. So we had left off on the section about going to these rulers and talking about how that works, So he says on section 4, were we to assume that he is spared from all that has been mentioned, and far-fetched that is indeed, he will not be spared from the corruption that finds its way to him when he sees their indulgence in pleasure. The likely consequences are that he will find himself belittling the blessings of Allah that Allah has bestowed upon him. Furthermore, others will follow his example in visiting to the ruler, so he will be increasing the followers of the oppressors. SubhanAllah. This is amazing. It's really incredible. This is, I need to sit back. It's gonna kill me. It's really incredible. Think about the way that they thought about things. Just kind of when you sit with it, you read it, you see, okay, how did the thought progress? How is he considering this issue? So if you remember, we were talking about visiting oppressors, tyrants, and he had given some conditions for that and times when someone might do it, generally they wouldn't, and so on. And he talked about some of the problems that can come up as a result of that. Like, for example, if they go to visit one of these tyrannical rulers, then most likely they're gonna have to stand up for that person. And standing up for someone that you know is committing this oppression, he says that would be haram. And then you have to honor them, you have to do all of these things, it's gonna be a problem. So he's saying, finally, let's assume that the person has all of the conditions are met, that they can actually go to this ruler. He says that's far-fetched indeed. Then what's the next problem that's gonna come? Next problem that's gonna come is that the person themselves is going to be corrupted by seeing the way that the ruler lives. Right, so again, it's our world is a little bit different, but we basically all, not all, but many people live as if they're kings now. So, so yeah, we have basically whatever food we want, and we have temperature controlled spaces, and we have a lot of luxury, and nobody really lives like that. But let's assume, that you're going into this ruler, and you see the way that this person lives, then you yourself will be corrupted. Say, wow, I wish I could have those things. I'm hesitant to say what I'm going to say right now because it has some consequences. But if you were to take this position, how does this affect our usage of things like Instagram in particular? What do you think? Do you see the connection? Do you not see the connection? Okay, so one of the things that's you see all the time on Instagram, right, in particular, is like life choreographed in a particular way with certain really nice things. And so the person who's always seeing this, then they start to want those things and have a lack of gratitude and satisfaction with what they have, right? So he's saying the likely consequence is that he will find himself belittling the blessings that Allah has bestowed upon him. That in itself is really significant. What he's saying is this issue in itself is really significant. I'm going to see what everyone else has and then stop appreciating what Allah has already given me. It's not saying, of course, that someone could want nice things or something, but the point is that there has to be, it's kind of rare now, I think, for people to simultaneously want better for themselves, maybe for their family, their community, stuff like that, while at the same time not belittling the blessing that they have. Because this is the real issue. The real issue is that I'm belittling the blessing that I have, when it's a tremendous blessing. And the Prophet ﷺ, one of his descriptions is that he would never belittle any blessing. And even if it was the smallest of things, ﷺ, he wouldn't belittle it. It's overwhelming. It's actually an overwhelming piece of information. So he says that could be, so number one possibility, they themselves start to want what the other person has, and they're willing now to sacrifice what they should be doing in order to get it. That's the mutaratab alayh, right? That's what comes from this, is that they see what the other person has and they say, you know what? I'm willing to give up like doing things perfectly halal because I need that thing that other people have, right? So now they're willing to give that up. And number two is that they start to look down on their own blessings. Number three is others will follow his example in visiting the ruler. So he will be increasing the followers of the oppressors. He will be increasing the followers of the oppressors. It's like yesterday we were talking with someone and they said, I don't watch any Pierce Morgan stuff anymore. And because this guy is clearly making his money off strategically showing a certain amount of Muslims in a certain way so that he can tap into the huge audience of the Muslims internationally and increase his own following and make money off it. And then if I watch it, it increases the views, makes it so that other people end up seeing it. So, this whole idea that don't give them more attention, because when you give them more attention, then more people see it. There's a lot, these concepts actually, they pan out onto a lot of stuff that we're seeing or stuff that we're going through, right? So we don't want to be a reason for more people following the oppressor. Sallimna ya Rabb. Sallimna ya Rabb. It has been narrated that Sa'id ibn Musayyib was once invited to pledge his allegiance, his bay'ah, to Al-Walid and Sulaiman, the two sons of Abdul Malik. But he said, I shall not give my pledge to two at the same time, for as long as night follows the day. Then they said, enter from this door and exit from the other. But he said, no, by Allah, I will not let anyone follow my example in that. As a result, he was flogged 100 lashes and dressed in the rough woolen garments. And so these early scholars, things were kind of serious. You know, you have, generally speaking, it's like the world is not as controlled as it is now. SubhanAllah, it's hard for you people to understand now. But those of us a little bit, even if you're in my age bracket, you remember, like the world even 20 years ago was not as controlled as it is now. Because telephones, social media, all this stuff increased surveillance to a level that's completely like unheard of. Right? Even 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it wasn't like that. So they're saying like these people become rulers, and they know that these imams, Sa'id ibn Musayyib was one of the imams. He was from the Mujtahid Imam category. And they know that these people are very dangerous because they have a lot of influence. And if they don't get them to submit to them, then they could be a source of rebellion against them. So they come to him, you tell him, I want you to give your bay'ah, your allegiance to these two sons. His issue is very simple. It's not even necessarily an oppression issue. It might be, but his issue is also very simple, is that you don't give bay'ah to two. Right? In the political bay'ah, you don't give political bay'ah to two. There's only one Khalif. So he says, I'm not giving it to two. So they said, well, just do it and then leave it afterwards. Basically make a symbol out of it. Right? And he said, no, that's not gonna happen. So they flogged him 100 times and they dressed him in clothes that's very difficult, a wool garment that's very rough, especially after you've been flogged, right? It's going to be very uncomfortable, very painful. So, but this was the position that he took. Based on what has been mentioned, there are only two excuses for going to tyrannical rulers. Number one, they demand that and their harm is feared if one refuses. Number two, one goes to them to stop a Muslim from being oppressed. If this is the case, entering their presence is allowed on the condition that one does not lie and praise and does not neglect advice if he thinks it might be accepted. So these are two interesting, and then he says this is what pertains to the ruling of going to the rulers. Okay. So the first is that the person goes not because they actually would want to go in any sort of way, but because they fear a very real potential harm for not going. And this is, of course, maybe not, of course, very possible, right? Second thing is that they go only because they think that they can limit the oppression that is going to come to a Muslim as a result of their going. And they're not going to lie, and they're not going to praise, and they're going to give advice if they believe the advice will be accepted. So now they have an ulterior motive, right? The ulterior motive is, I can go and I recognize that this is bad. But if I go and I recognize that this is bad, and I know that these people are going to do bad things, but normally they might kill 10,000 people, and maybe if I go, they'll only kill 8,000 people. That's significant, right? It does actually matter. And it's hard to read. From the outside, it's hard to read. And I'll just leave you with these principles. Try to understand these principles. Okay? Second possibility is that the ruler comes to visit you himself. In this case, one is obliged to answer his greeting. As for standing up and honoring him for the honorable treatment he has given, it is not unlawful here. This is because the way he has honored knowledge and the religion makes him deserving of praise, just as the way he has oppressed people makes him deserving of rebuke. So now, with this sentence, I'm running into an issue. I had said in this section that a lot of times when they write these sections, they're talking specifically to the people of knowledge. And I don't remember it being in the section title here in English, but it's as if it's in the section title in Arabic, that it's referring to scholars going to the rulers. And now with this sentence, you have kind of an indication that that might be the case. I don't have the Arabic. I really should start. I don't know why. Now it's harder because I need to bring the Arabic. Proper preparation would entail comparing every word, but inshallah. The ruler comes to visit you. So the ruler now has come to visit this person of knowledge. And in doing that, they've kind of, they've made some sort of acknowledgement of the position of the person of knowledge. So in that case, the interaction changes. If the ruler enters alone and the host deems it good to stand up in honor of the religion, that is better than sitting. If he enters with a group of men, then considering the dignified status that the governors enjoy among their people is even better. So there is nothing wrong in standing up with this intention. So they might stand up with different intentions. Maybe the ruler enters with a group of people. So the person stands up, not even necessarily with the intention of honoring the ruler, but with maybe some of the other people that are with him, because the people like those people, right? So they can have the intentions can be a little bit strategic, maybe you can say. If, however, he knows that sitting down will not cause trouble within the people, and that he will not be harmed by an upset ruler, it is better not to honor him by standing up. That's better. After this, he is obliged to advise the ruler and to inform him about his unlawful activities if he does not know the ruling. So if he thinks the ruler doesn't know, like this thing that you're doing, it's not allowed, so on, so he's now required to tell him. And he's required to give him advice, tell him, fear Allah, you have amana over the people, all of these kind of things. As for telling him that oppression and drinking wine are wrong, there is no benefit in that. What he must do instead is warn him of the sinfulness as much as he thinks will affect his heart. He must also give him direction towards the best interest of all. If he knows of a legal way for the oppressor to get what he wants, he tells him about it. So he gives him sound advice. Third possibility, that you stay away from them so that neither of you see each other. This is the safest way. So the first possibility was, the person goes to the ruler. Second possibility is the ruler comes to them. Third possibility is you stay away from it entirely so that there's no situation at all, and this is the safest one. He must hate their oppression with certain conviction. He must not desire to meet them and must not feel bad about anything he might miss due to not being in their presence. To have any interest. I don't need to interact with these people, and I don't need anything from what they have. One of the pious said, there is but one day between me and the kings. As for the day that has passed, they cannot find its pleasure. While both I and they are fearful about tomorrow. It is but today, and who knows what will happen today. So basically, what happened in the past, nobody can go back to it. What happens in the future, we're all fearful over it. So all it is today. And as for today, we don't know what will happen. So we just, have this issue. Then he says issue. I wonder what this is. It's mas'ala or maybe mas'ala. If a ruler sends you money and tells you to distribute it to the poor, you are not allowed to take it if its owner is known. If the owner is not known, the ruling is that he should give it in charity as mentioned earlier. We talked about earlier. Thus, he should go on and distribute it to the poor. Some scholars, however, refuse to take money like this. If most of their money is unlawful, dealing with them is impermissible. So this is already covered in the previous section. When it comes to the bridges, masjids, and drinking places built by the oppressors, the matter should be looked into. Drinking places here does not mean alcohol. It means like places where you can get water. Because they used to build these things around the city, places where you can get water. The matter should be looked into if the things used to build them belong to a specific owner. They can only be walked on in cases of necessity. But if the owner is not known, they can be used normally A prudent person, however, refrains from that in both cases, and Allah knows best. Allah knows best. These people, you know, Al-Maqdisi were known for their taqwa. As we talked about in the beginning, you know, the family, Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi is a family of scholars and pious people. They were known for their scrupulousness and for their jihad. You know, this is a family who fought alongside the armies of. Their family was taken out of Jerusalem. They left Jerusalem because of the Crusaders, and they were on the outskirts of Jerusalem. If you remember, the patriarch of the family, and he was very powerful. So he got word that they were going to kill him. So then his family immigrated to the area of Sham. And when they got there, they set up camp there, basically. And if you remember, when they got there, one of the pious people who also was very wealthy met them at the city and said, like, welcome, you know, to this family, to the city of Damascus and everything. You know, we're happy for you to be here and everything else. And here's this money for you and your family. Take care of you. And he said, alhamdulillah, I'm fine. We don't need this. And then that righteous person then took that money and put it in an endowment in the name of the family. He was like, okay, you don't want it? We have a way to give it to you that makes it so that you're not caught up in all of this, because we understand, you know? And this is how the family got situated. And then there were generation upon generation of scholars. Many women too, actually, from the family, the Maqdisi family. Because when you have a family like that, it's much easier for the women to study. So the women are studying with their siblings, with their father, with their uncle, all of these people. They became ulama and muhaddithin also. Because in the end of the day, studying needs a lot of time. There's no way around it. So if you have family members that you can spend time with, it's great. Also, I believe there's an element here, like they're all Hanbalis. And they would live in like a compound. So it also makes everyone close to each other. If you live in a compound and you're a Hanbali, it's very useful. Because in the Hanbali madhab, Salat al-Jama'ah is wajib. Every salat for men. Every salat. Doesn't have to be in the masjid, but it has to be in Jama'ah. It has to be in congregation. So, you know, it helps to live in a compound. You have a lot of people around. And children don't count. They have to be baligh. So it's tough to do. When it comes to the bridges, we said that, and Allah knows best. Okay, it's the end of the section. Chapter 5, on the ethics in companionship and brotherhood. I don't know how much he goes into detail here, but to me, like practically speaking, this is one of the most important chapters in this text. In Imam al-Ghazali's text, it is. You know, and we've taught that before as a, what did we teach it as? I can't remember right now, subhanAllah, but now as I'm thinking about it, we need to add it to the seminary. That. Okay, alhamdulillah. These sections are really good. So this gives you the art of companionship, the art of community, maybe. We use that for adab al-suhbah, so we can't use it again, but this is relationships. On ethics and companionship and brotherhood. Know that harmony and union is the fruit of good character. Well, this sentence he took straight from Ghazali. Do you remember Mukhtasar Minhaj al-Qasidin? This is the text that we're reading. It's an abridgment of Minhaj al-Qasidin of Ibn al-Jawzi. Ibn al-Jawzi's Minhaj al-Qasidin is a refinement of Imam al-Ghazali's Ihya Ulumuddin. So this is all going back to the Ihya. So he says, know that harmony and union is the fruit of good character, while disunity stems from bad character. This is simply because good character leads to mutual love and agreement, while bad character only sow the seed of mutual hatred and turning away from each other. The virtues of good character are obvious, and there are many traditions about this. This sentence is worth memorizing. Okay, I would probably change union to unity. Know that harmony and unity are the fruit of good character, while disunity stems from bad character. This sentence. This sentence is worth memorizing. Actually, subhanAllah, when we were studying, some of our teachers, they would do this. When you're reading, they would say, like, this sentence, you should memorize this sentence. Every page or two, and just remember this, subhanAllah. Even in fiqh. Usually in the past, when you study fiqh, you memorize the whole book. But they knew that we're all weak now. So we would read fiqh and then they would say, this sentence, you should memorize it because this issue will come up a lot. And the question will come up a lot. If you memorize the sentence, you'll get the answer to that question. So know that harmony and unity are the fruit of good character, while disunity stems from bad character. Who's got it? Who memorized it? Nobody? Know that harmony and unity are the fruit of good character, and disunity stems from bad character. You can do more than you think you can. I used to do this with the kids in the school. They're like, memorize. How can we do that? Sheikh Ahmed Saad al-Azhari, he's been doing a lot of stuff in Indonesia. He's in Indonesia right now. He said, there's no such thing as a good memory and bad memory. There's only a mind that's not trained. And our minds are actually not trained for memory. But in classical Islamic societies, everyone is trained for memory. Memorize everything. No. You struggle, for people like us, we struggle. It was disheartening, to tell you the truth, When we were in Egypt, it's disheartening. Because the Egyptians, Bismillah, mashallah, unbelievable. And then you have the people you have the regular people, they're unbelievable. And then you have the special people who are like we heard this story one time, the sheikh, he was sitting in a class, he made this point. And someone raised their hand to differ with him on the point, right? He said, yeah, but such and so says in his book, such and such. And the sheikh looked at him and he said, you're right. He does say that on page such and such. And if you would have kept reading to page such and such, you would have seen the explanation of what he said on the previous page, and you would have understood that what he said doesn't contradict with what I'm saying right now. Like, what do you do when someone does that to you? You just give up on life, Like, forget it. This is different. Alhamdulillah that Allah made people like that to preserve this deen. When you hear people like, there's one sheikh, he's an expert in usul fiqh. His sons were engineers. His sons had memorized Bukhari and Muslim and stuff like that. All of Bukhari and Muslim. He's memorized all of them. Yeah. Know that harmony and unity are the fruit of good character. And disunity stems from bad character. Disunity stems from bad character. Good. This statement is really, really powerful. If you think about it in life, think about it in all kinds of issues, Yeah. 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 We said that last week, the week before. Sheikh al-Ma'sarawi does his review on all of the qira'at and hasn't opened the Mus'haf for 20 years. Not just one qira'at, even all of the qira'at. He finished one every 5 days. And يقرأ 6 days. Finish one every 6 days, go to the next one. SubhanAllah. And actually, the memory of the Muslims, the secret of the memory of the Muslims is in the Quran. That's why. Because the Muslims had always memorized the Quran from early age. Actually, one brother that I studied with, he grew up in the Bay Area. They had his father push them in Quran and they excelled in it. You can't push everyone, but some people, they excel in it. He memorized the Quran when he was 10. Okay, and mashallah, like good memorization, 10 years old. Then he went to Berkeley, for undergrad when computer science was like just coming out, it was like just becoming popular. And he did his bachelor's in computer science from Berkeley, which was like a big deal, I remember asking him, like, it must have been really hard. He's like, no, alhamdulillah, like the Quran, it trained my mind. I would just go to class, I would sit in class, and I remember everything. And I take my test, and I go take the test, and I graduated. Alhamdulillah, he graduated. He began working as a computer programmer in Oracle. Then him and his wife moved to Egypt. They enrolled in Al-Azhar. So him and his wife finished Al-Azhar while he worked at Oracle at night. And he worked remotely for Oracle as a programmer the whole time he was in Egypt. He graduated from the College of Tafsir, finished the 10 qira'at, read them on, worked as a programmer throughout the time, went back to the United States. MashaAllah, he's a very humble person. Went back to the United States, continued his work in programming, and never served as a sheikh, never served. In this community, he's not known as a sheikh, anything like that. He said, because I'm not a sheikh, I was working as a programmer the whole time I was studying. We're like, you graduated tafsir from an Azhar, you're a hafiz of the 10 qira'at, you're a sheikh. He's like, no, I'm not a sheikh. I wasn't able to give it its time. I was working. So subhanAllah, there's people like that still in the United States. Many people like that in the United States. Anyways, the good character. Memorization was not the point, actually. To bring it back to the point, someone can memorize and have bad character, right? So many people memorize a lot of things that have bad character, right? But what is he saying here? It's good character that brings people together, keeps people together. It's bad character that breaks people apart. If we think in our lives, now again, don't think about like extreme oppression. Everyday life has some level of oppression, okay? But don't think of extreme oppression. Regular everyday oppression in our relationships, our interactions, stuff like this. If you look at like, what would the good character response be? Many times you'll find it would have solved the problem. The problem is actually a character problem, right? Person doesn't have enough patience. They don't have enough forgiveness. They're too unsettled with themselves internally. They have too many issues internally they need to work out. They're not at peace inside. So then they bring that into all of their interactions with everyone else. And they have this agitation. They can't control their speech. They have no patience. They have to tell everyone else everything that they do. All of these things are character issues. I was reading something else earlier this week, and it really struck me. He said that basically the foundation of good character is a sabr al-adha wa ihtimal al-jafa. He said, good character, the foundation of it is to have patience over harm. Have patience over harm. And to have forbearance, like to bear the weight. Ihtimal is hard to translate. Ihtimal and tahammul is hard to translate. But it's like you bear the burden of it. You bear the burden of someone else's coldness and dryness. If they have some harshness in the interaction, you bear the burden of it. And this is the foundation of good character. And it's like, sometimes again, here's where memorization matters. One of the reasons memorization matters is not just to memorize a bunch of stuff. It matters because we want to memorize things so that they can become part of us. So if I can remember this sentence, right? The sentence of good character brings about unity and all of these things, then I can think about that all week. Or if I'm thinking about the foundation of good character is the sabr al-adha wa ihtimal al-jafa, then I can think like, okay, it's to have patience over harm and to deal with people's coldness. Okay, fine. Now I'm going to do this. Every day I can think about it. I can go to sleep, I can think about it. I can stand in line, I can think about it. I can do nothing and think about it. And then I can try to make this part of who I am, right? But this is where the actual work comes. The actual work comes in that. Because a lot of it goes back to our character. And then he said after that, he said, مكارم الأخلاق في ثلاثة منحصرة لين كلام والسخاء والعفو عند المقدرة. He said that the good character is encompassed in three things. Good character is encompassed in three things. Number one is linu kalamin, is to have gentle speech. Gentle speech. Number two is to have sakha. Sakha is generosity. And generosity, as we've talked about before, is not just generosity of money, but it's generosity of self, that I'm willing to give from myself to others. And then he said, وَالْعَفُوا عَنْدَ الْمَقْدِرَةِ, and it is to pardon people when you are able to take them into account. It's not just a pardon when you can't do anything about it, right? You can't do anything about it, it's whatever, you're stuck. So it's easier to force ourselves to like, okay, fine, I'm just going to forgive them. Okay, well, it wasn't that much of an accomplishment because there's nothing you could do about it anyways, right? But if you can actually take them to account, and you're like, all right, I'm not going to do this, then that's an opportunity for good character. Personally, I believe that with our children, this is the best place to practice these things. And the best indication of true character is with someone's family. Outside is easy, inside is hard. And with children is the hardest because they can't really do a whole lot. They're stuck. They're stuck with whatever we do to them, you know? So we do right by them, we do right by them. We do wrong by them, we do wrong by them. They can't really go anywhere. There's nothing they can do about it. So, but good character shows most in that place. This is simply because good character leads to mutual love and agreement, while bad character brings mutual hatred and turning away. It's a very simple statement, right? So what does good character do? Brings people together and it makes them love each other. What does bad character do? Creates problems between people, splits them apart. SubhanAllah. Such a simple statement, again, it's so powerful. The famous lines of poetry from in Busti, from Afghanistan, modern day Afghanistan. It's a very nice poem. It's been translated, Unwan and Hikam. Actually, I've meant to teach that several times. I keep forgetting. Unwan and Hikam. I forget what they call it in English. But his name is Busti, Busti. He said, أحسن إلى الناس تستعبد قلوبهم فطال مستعبد الإنسان إحسانه. He said, be good to people, you will enslave their hearts. Because people are enslaved, or people are enslaved by those who do good to them. This is the way good character works. The virtues of good character are obvious, and there are many traditions about this. It is narrated from Abu Darda radiallahu ta'ala anhu that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, nothing weighs more in a believer's scale on the day of resurrection than good character. This is one of my favorite topics because I feel like it's so important and it's underemphasized. The thing is that if it was emphasized every single day, it would still be underemphasized because that's the reality of the way we are as human beings. We need this reminder all the time. And good character has endless layers to it. Like there's basic level things, but as soon as a person starts paying attention to it, and as soon as they start trying to be around people who have good character, they notice that there's like endless layers to this. And there's always more going and more going and more going. And we have to keep working on it to make it better and better. Okay. So, and that's why Imam al-Junayd radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Imam al-Junayd they call him Imam al-Ta'ifa. Right, so in Aqidah we have Imam Ahmed and Abu Mansur al-Maturidi and Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari. They're the Imams of the Aqidah of Ahl Sunnah. And then in Fiqh, you have the Imams of Abu Hanifa and Malik and Shafi'i and Ahmed ibn Hanbal, right? And then in spirituality, you have a Junayd. Bas. Junayd is the Imam of spirituality. That's what they say. He's Imam al-Ta'ifa. So Junayd is like that. Junayd used to say, طريقنا هذا مقيد بالكتاب والسنة فمن لم يسمع الحديث ويجالس الفقهاء ويأخذ أدبه من المتأدبين أفسد من اتبعه. He said, this way of ours is constrained by the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay, this way of ours, he's talking about spirituality. So he says, this way of ours is contained by the Quran and the Sunnah. So whoever doesn't listen to hadith, they're regular in listening to the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And, what did I see yesterday? I saw something. Yes. I'll say it afterwards. Whoever doesn't read the hadith and sit with the fuqaha. And the word that's used here is interesting. It's yujalis and fuqaha. Yujalis means like you go to them, you sit with them, you talk with them, they talk to you, you have like a back and forth about the ideas. And this is actually a very wise statement because that's how you develop your proper thinking. Many Muslims are coming up with their thinking on Islam just sitting with themselves. It's not sufficient. Ideas cannot be worked through like that, One of our teachers used to say that when they were studying, they used to go, and alhamdulillah, we used to do this too, is they used to, each of the people that he was studying with, they go to their different shuyukh, they go to their different classes and stuff like that. And then every night or a couple times a week, they get together and they do munaqasha of everything they're hearing. They discuss everything they heard. Okay, you heard this from this person, you heard this from this person. How do we understand it? How do we place it? What about this? They go to the books. So they're like processing it together, right? So the second thing he said is yujalis al-fuqaha. That they sit with the people of knowledge, fiqh in particular. They get this knowledge from them. And the third thing he said was يَأْخُذْ أَدَبَهُ مِنَ الْمُتَأَدِّبِينَ. And he takes his adab from the people of adab. Adab is manners and character. Okay, so they take their manners and their character from people of manners and character. If they don't do those three things, he said, أَفْسَدَ مَنِ اتَّبَعَ, then they will corrupt anyone who follows. If they don't meet these three conditions, anyone who follows them will be corrupted by them. They won't actually benefit from it. So may Allah give us these things. Amen. I was reading last night in Hadith Riyadh al-Salihin. Riyadh al-Salihin is very important. Every household should have it. Everyone should read from it. It will Gardens of the Righteous. Actually, Mecca Books just sent an advertisement email yesterday about it, about Imam al-Nawawi. SubhanAllah, like I read from it and then I got the email. And I was like, this is a little bit creepy. But I'm sure it was the email to everyone. And it mentioned all of Imam al-Nawawi's books that are translated that they're selling and stuff like that. Riyadh al-Salihin was one of them. So I read this hadith yesterday about the Prophet ﷺ and his family. It said, "Urqabu Muhammadan fi ahli baytihi." And I was like, SubhanAllah, it's Bukhari. It's an authentic hadith. If you don't read the hadith, you don't see it enough. Think about it. If you just go to a lecture, you listen to it, there's certain things that are repeated in lectures. If you just watch things that show up on your feed, there's certain things that are going to show up on your feed. If you don't read, you miss a lot. And that's why we said before, why we read from text in these classes, is because when you read from a text, you take something from beginning to end, you hit a lot of things you wouldn't have hit otherwise. It was just I came and I talked about whatever was on my mind. You get like 1% of what you get when you read from a text. So the hadith says, and then it said about the meaning of this word, رَاعُوهُ وَاحْتَرِمُوهُ, that seek and respect Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Seek and respect the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam through his family. So it's like, can you get any more blatant, like explicit than that? Look for the family. You want to respect the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, look for his family and honor and respect his family. It's very simple, But now it's like you say this kind of stuff and people think you're a weirdo or something. It's like, no, because you don't read. Like, go read something, sit with some actual people of knowledge, not like whatever comes up on your feed. So read the hadith, be with the people of adab. And the Prophet ﷺ is saying nothing weighs more in a believer's scale on the day of resurrection than good character. I mean, and then he said, those of you who I love the most and who shall sit nearest to me on the day of resurrection are those with the best character. One of the versions of that is أَقْرَبُكُمْ إِلَيَّ مَجْلِسًا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَحَاسِنُكُمْ أَخْلَاقًا. The people who sit closest to me on the day of judgment are those who have the best character. Those of you whom I hate the most and who shall sit furthest away from me on the day of resurrection are the ones with the worst character. SubhanAllah. With regard to love for Allah's sake, it occurs in the two authentic collections from Abu Hurairah that the Prophet ﷺ said, there are 7 whom Allah will bring under his shade on the day when there is no shade but his. These include 2 who loved each other for Allah's sake. They came together upon that and separated upon that. They loved each other for the sake of Allah. They came together for the sake of Allah. They separated for the sake of Allah. As we said before, sometimes people will say, well, why does it have to be for the sake of Allah? Can't we just love people? You could just love people. You're gonna love less people. If you do it for just out of what comes natural to you, you're just gonna love less people. And the goal is to love more people. You love for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you throw a broader net. Like, oh, okay, I don't really get along with this person at all. We have nothing in common. We have no similarities. We don't have the same language, we don't have the same culture, we don't have the same tendencies, we don't have the same life experiences, we don't have anything that's similar to one another. And I can still love this person for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is, so you have this love for the sake of Allah and good character, and it brings people together. And this is one of the hallmarks of sound Muslim community, is that many people are brought together from all different walks of life, because the foundation is that love for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In another hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, my love is necessary for those who love each other for my sake. My love is necessary for those who give gladly to each other for my sake. My love is necessary for those who visit each other for my sake. This is the Majlis hadith. We call this the hadith of the Majlis. When you go to the website, it's the thing that's on the front page of the website. حقة محبتي للمتحابين فيها، محقة محبتي للمتزاورين فيها، محقة محبتي متبادلين فيها. The fourth one, there's a fourth one he didn't mention here. There's love is for those who love for my sake, who visit for my sake, who give for my sake. Okay, there's a fourth one. But they all kind of like build on each other. Yes, they visit each other for my sake. Was that one up there? Oh, oh yeah, visit is not here. You're right. No, visit is there. Spend is there. Mutanasihin. Yeah, mutanasihin. Yeah, and my love is for those who give counsel to one another for my sake. And what's amazing is all of these, you see how they work together. That all of these, they work together. So it's like, if you visit each other, love each other for Allah's sake, visit each other for Allah's sake, spend on each other for Allah's sake, then you'll give each other nasiha and good counsel for Allah's sake. All of these things, they go together. In another hadith, Allah says, another hadith says, the firmest handhold of Iman is that you love for Allah and you hate for Allah. And there are many hadiths to this effect. Both of them, by the way. Know that whoever loves for Allah also hates for Allah. After all, if you love a person because he is obedient to Allah, you will certainly hate him for Allah's sake if he disobeys him. I'll talk about this in a second. This is because anyone who loves another for some reason also hates him when the opposite of that reason occurs. This said, when one has both praiseworthy and abhorrent qualities, you must love him from one angle and hate him from another. So we talked about this in a different class, but the idea here is not that you're hating the person, but you're hating that thing that they do. Because the person actually, one of the core things that we believe as Muslims is that the person is good, right? Human beings are inherently good. They're on their fitrah, by the way. We talked about this before, but they're born on their fitrah. They're not born as Muslims. It's a very commonly mistranslated thing. كل مولود يولد على الفطرة, not يولد على الإسلام. Everyone says, well, a person's not a convert, they're a revert because everyone was born Muslim. No, everyone was not born Muslim. Everyone is born on fitrah. Everyone is born on the natural disposition that allows them and encourages them to know God. Not that they were born as Muslims. Then their parents make them Christian or Jewish. The hadith says parents make them Christian, Jewish, or Muslim. So they're born on the natural state. Anyways, society. But so they're good. Point is, people are born good. People are born good, and they can go back to that. You must love a Muslim for his Islam and hate him for his disobedience, and observe a middle way with him between total avoidance and total relaxation. If his sin is just a slip and you know that he will regret it, it is better to overlook and conceal it. But if he persists in it, one must manifest his hate by turning away, keeping distance, and employing harsh words according to the harshness of the sin. Okay, so this will probably be the last thing we cover because it's important. All right, so this paragraph, you'll find similar paragraphs to this in many old books. What is the paragraph saying? Paragraph is saying, saying when people do things, acts of disobedience against Islam, and they're not really small things. If they're really small things, first what it says. What it says is if it's a really small thing, you overlook it if you can. If it's a bigger thing, then you should reject them and turn away from them and treat them harshly. Okay. Now, many people will read these sections and think that this is absolutely 100% the way they think should be done. They're like, listen, Ibn Qudamah said it, Imam Ghazali said it, everyone said it, same thing. Well, first of all, not everyone said it. That's two people. In our tradition, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people. But yes, some major people said this. Why? You have to understand why, right? Very simply, the why is that these people lived in environments where Islam dominated everything. Okay? So the default social interaction of people was according to the rules of Islam. So if you have someone who now is doing things that are against that, then how do they respond to it? They respond to it by making it clear to that person that what you're doing is not going to be acceptable by this collective. And so you need to get your things in order. That was the method that they used to get people to come back in a sense, right? Or to align themselves. Does that mean that's what we should be doing today in the United States of America and Southern California? If we see like our brother or sister and they do something sinful and we just like turn away from them and treat them harshly? Does that seem like the best method? Probably not, right? So this is a matter of how it's not, this isn't like a matter of revelation. It's a matter of strategy in the sense. And yes, we should not show like that we're pleased with things that are wrong. You know, if someone's doing something wrong, we shouldn't like pretend like, oh, that's a great thing, we're happy with it, you know. But at the same time, we should interact with them in a way that's respectful, that has good character, that invites them to reform, invites them to change and become better, right? Rather than pushing them away. So just be careful with this section. And that's not me just like doing some sort of modern interpretation of this. This is actually like, I believe how this should be understood and how like people of knowledge, true knowledge, if you sat with them, I'm very confident they would say the same thing. Never had someone say otherwise. People who've just read things and then they get excited and they like to repeat them and they make videos online and build followers and do all kinds of weird things that have nothing to do with Islam or the adab and the character of a Muslim, that's different. You know, they do all kinds of things anyways. They're not, and by the way, you know, we've said this before, but the average Muslim, they have a responsibility in front of Allah for who they take their religion from. It's not just on the person who's speaking. Person who's speaking, yes, it's on them too, of course. But the person who's seeking, it's also on them. You know, so if people are supporting people who have bad character and stuff like that because, I don't know, they're popular online, it's complete falsehood. May Allah give us guidance. Yes. Okay, so this is the end for the day. Anyone have any comments or questions? Okay. Any comments or questions or anything? Anyone has? Yes.
The importance of memorization. That historically, that adab was there a lot more. It's still there. But I just wanted to know if you had any high-level advice on strengthening memorization.
Yeah.
From your experience, just what works well.
I have not succeeded in this realm. So that should be the first point that needs to be mentioned. But that being said, actually, you know what? I'll share it to my personal Telegram channel. But Sheikh Ahmed Saad did mention some of this in his session in Indonesia. And then they shared some works on it, you know. Sheikh Ahmed, by the way, in English is one of these people. Sheikh Ahmed Saad al-Azhari, he's in England. You know, just like different people. Comes from a place in Egypt that has a lot of ulama. His father was a scholar, his grandfather was a scholar. He memorized the Quran from an early age. He memorized Alfiyat ibn Malik from an early age in poetry. memorized Arabic poetry from an early age in large numbers, memorized the qira'at, studied Shafi'i fiqh, mastered it, studied Maliki fiqh, mastered it, studied hadith, studied everything basically. And came to the West, decided he should get a PhD. He just finished his PhD in modernity and Islam. So it was a very interesting figure. So he posted some things. One of them is the Book of Memory, a study of memory in medieval cultures by Mary Carruthers. Second is, or that one doesn't really, there's two that aren't really exactly related. Number 4 that he mentioned is Islam, Memory, and Morality in Yemen. Explores the intersection of Islam, memory, and morality in Yemen's ruling families. Interesting. It'd be fascinating. Islam, memory, and morality in Yemen. The Value of Time by Sheikh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghadda. It doesn't deal with memory, but it deals with other things. And then he said, Train Your Brain More by Dr. Kawashima. I think he's the guy who started Kumon. I think he's the Kumon guy. Train Your Brain More. I just put it there on my, forwarded on my Telegram. You can find it there. Yes.
Translate or explain the actual the meaning of Arija or woman like what does that actually mean? Like
that's a good question.
Is it because Islam is emotional and physical?
Sure. Did she end up doing it? Okay. Real quick, also Ahmed. Simple thing, if you want to improve your memory, just memorize something every day. Get a little notebook. Something that if you were to repeat it maybe 3 or 4 times, you can remember it. So something that's small enough, and that will get bigger over time. Something that's small enough that if I said this 3 or 4 times, I can remember it. Just do that every single day. Put it in a notebook, and you can review the notebook. The easy way to do that is with hadith. Pick short hadith, do 1 hadith. The year passes, you memorize 350 hadith. It's a good thing. To the question of Ar-Rijal Qawwamuna 'ala an-Nisa.